Gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be back and to be back with this team. The same team is back, apart from Danson, who is a new member on this forum. But I really feel honored again to host you on Diaspora, Home and Abroad. This show is back because of what's going on, both at home and abroad. And today, this topic doesn't need any introduction, because what's happening is that there's so much going on in Kenya. And straight away, I'm going to go to Mombasa and bring in Professor. And I reached to him yesterday about what's going on today. And he told me he's on vacation in Kenya, specifically in Mombasa. And Professor, I really, as always, I'm honored. And I thank you very much for honoring our request that you join us and make sense of what's going on. So as we speak, I know you don't even have to introduce yourself because people know you, but lay the table for us in terms of what's happening in Kenya in summary. Give us a summary of what's happening.
I think, thank you, Ndugu Mwenyekiti, Chris Omala, thank you for hosting us, thank you for this forum. My first thing I need to say is I voted, and the mark is still there. 7 days after I voted.
Awesome.
The mark is still there. The mark is still there. The democracy lives. But I guess what I must say, Chris, in reflection as a voter, I'm not talking about this thing from New York. I'm talking about this thing from Kenya, where I voted in my constituency. I was able to vote in my constituency in Kajiado, and I voted for my governor, I voted for my president, for my senator, for my MP, for all the 6 slots on the ballot. So I think for me, that was a very interesting sort of narrative about how do we think about diasporans and how can we improve this process? Because I'd really like Osiro, all people in diaspora, to be able to vote for all the different slots. Wangusi, Chris Wamalwa, if you're abroad, you should be able to vote for not only your president, but for all the 6 different slots. But I guess here is the bigger debate about what we're going to talk about today. What do we do with this presidential petition? We have 2 different sides, 2 different challenges. But unfortunately, as I see it on my end, Chris, it's 2 sides of the same coin. It's politicians making a game of this whole process. They have commissioners on one side supporting Azimio, commissioners on the other side supporting Kenya Kwanza. And this constantly creates confusion in the Kenyan electoral process. I think this is something we really need to interrogate. The second thing I need to think about, Chris, is as much as we talk about Raila Amolo Odinga and his constant petition challenges, a lot of people have a lot of issues with Raila and say he never accepts defeat. But I think every time Raila challenges petitions and results, it makes our electoral process better. I think that's another thing we need to think about. The third thing I think we need to think about is this, Chris. From the Kenya Kwanza team, what is their agenda? How will they bring the country together? The way this petition is going, the way the international media is going, and depending on how the Supreme Court decides this election, if Kenya Kwanza has a victory and William Ruto becomes president, how do you bring the 48% of Kenyans that voted against William Ruto? How do you bring them on board? I think this will be the challenge. But ultimately, as a diaspora forum, Chris Wamalwa, this is the diaspora forum. We need to think about how will we re-engage diasporas so that I do not have to fly from New York to vote for my MP. I can vote for my MP in New York. If I'm Wangusi, I can vote for my MP in BC. If I'm Osiro, I can vote for my MP in Georgia. And if I'm Wamalwa, I can vote for my MP in Delaware. my senator, my governor, and all the other 6 tickets on the ballot. I think these are the issues we need to interrogate. But I'm really excited about, more broadly, the development of democracy in Kenya, because I think these are issues we need to talk
about. Thanks, Professor. As always, nobody else can lay a table for us like you do. And the best thing is that we have somebody on this forum who not only just was in Kenya to contest on Azimio or tickets. Initially, it was for ODM.
Yeah.
There he is. Dr. Wangusi. Dr. Wangusi was at home to contest on ODM. At some point, he left the process, but of course, he has an explanation. Dr. Wangusi, what are the 3 main issues that Azimio and by extension you are going to present to the court as we wake up in the morning today?
Let me just first correct, I think, the way Dr. Monda has framed the issues around our electoral process. And I think it's important to do that because, the popular narrative about not only our party leader, His Excellency Raila Odinga, but also about democracy as it is in general in Kenya. I think our democracy, after what we've seen in the past 2 elections and now in the current situation we find ourselves in, our democracy is on trial. And I'll say this categorically, that through the electoral process, from the campaigns to the election day, when Kenyans came out in huge numbers to vote for their preferred candidates at all electoral levels, Kenyans were generally peaceful. Kenyans were generally democratic. They were patient with the process. They waited for the results at all levels. This is an exceptional election because you also had concessions where candidates found that they were either behind or they were losing. But when it comes to the presidential election, I want to say this categorically and without any fear of contradicting myself, that the past 5 elections, and we've always said that, as Monda has repeated here, and I think this is highly incorrect, that Raila Odinga is one, perennially losing, and then perennially petitioning the court. I want to say this without any hesitation, that the problem is not so much that Raila Odinga is losing, it's that he's winning the elections, and then we have actors on the other side, and I'm going to now call them for what they are. Neo-Nyaoists. They're following the same philosophy that the former President Moi had, where you hijack the popular will of the people through the electoral process. Initially, it was blatant, but then now there are other schemes which we are going to challenge in court, and we can talk about that as we go along. So let's just make sure that that is clear, that our democracy is working, our institutions are working, but we have a set of actors that are committed to corrupting our electoral process, to corrupting individuals within the electoral process, and to making sure that by hook and crook, against the will of the people, that they're going to take the presidency. This happened in 2022, it happened in 2017, it happened again in 2013, it happened in 2007, it nearly caused a civil war in Kenya. In fact, I hope that in addition to ruling on the validity of this election, which we know based on the facts that we have on the ground now, I hope that they'll declare these individuals unfit to run for office by the Constitution.
So, Dr.
We just need to make sure that we correct those perceptions, because it's not that Raila Odinga has lost the elections. It's that these elections have been stolen. It's not that our democracy is weak. It's that you have actors who are hell-bent on stealing the elections.
Okay, Dr. I have Danson Mukile here, the UDA person, to respond to you, but I'll still want you to answer the question. What evidence are you presenting to the IEBC to show that the elections were stolen?
So elections, forget about the consensus or agreement about the numbers. Elections are a game. It's a competition on the basis of numbers. So when first we look at the number of counties and constituencies that Azimio won, save for Bungoma, where the vote was split, Marsabit, where the vote was split, and Isiolo. Azimio won a large mandate of the country. Second, back to this issue of corrupting our electoral process, and this is the question you raised earlier. Why is it that just at the eve of the election, that gubernatorial and presidential elections were cancelled in two of Azimio's strongholds, Kakamega and Mombasa? But more importantly, and I think this is where the crux of the matter is, when you take those totals of the presidential election, so after the Maina Kiai ruling, what they said basically was the elections that are the results that are announced at the constituency level, those results are the final results for the presidential election. Now, systemically, it is very hard at that stage to see what sort of machinations are going on to corrupt the process. It's only that they realize is in places like Kiambu and other Kenya Kwanza strongholds. It's only then that they realize, wait, in a place like Kiambu, which had voters showing up in larger numbers for the presidential election than in gubernatorial and others. So between the presidential election, they had 3 million voters, and then at the gubernatorial level, you have 500,000 voters, less than that. Now, for an election where the competition came down to 200,000 votes, I mean, that is significant. That's 1/5 of the votes in a constituency, which we can't explain. That's the first thing. Then when you go to the senatorial race, then you go to the women's rep race, that number is even larger. So what happens to those 500,000 votes plus and the 700 to 800,000 votes just in Kiambu? Then cover the whole of Rift Valley and other quote-unquote Kenya Kwanza strongholds, and it is systemic. What that tells us is that there was a systemic attempt to not only corrupt the process, but to do a constitutional coup. That's what we should call it. Right?
Okay.
Those are on the numbers. Then lastly, on the IEBC is a commission. It is not a talk shop owned by one individual. So when Wafula Chebukati comes out and makes a pronouncement that's not agreed upon by all the commissioners, he is going against not only the spirit, but also the letter, not only of the constitution, of our democracy, but also of the Independent Election and Act that created that commission. So on all those counts, I know today and in the next 14 days, they are going to present proof to show that this election was not only corrupted, but there was an attempt at a constitutional coup, and the people who are behind it should be held accountable.
Danson, turn on your speaker, Bwana.
Yes.
First, let me introduce you first. Danson Mukile is a Kenyan living in the diaspora. Danson is Ruto's right-hand man in the diaspora, especially in America. Because remember the meeting that Ruto had recently in the US, in Maryland especially, Danson was the person behind all that. Danson, Dr. Wanguzi has made very serious accusations about your team, UDA, and what really rings in my mind is that you guys stole the elections, and because of that, you need to be taken to court. You did not just only steal the election, but you attempted a constitutional coup.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, everyone. Daktari, I'm so glad to see you guys. My first time. I'll say that democracy, as Professor said, in our country has grown, and if I was even to compare with America, I think we are much ahead in terms of progressing, because at this time in US, their democracy was not that strong. So I believe Kenya is going the right direction. And we have been having a lot of reforms, including the IEBC, and up to now, And I feel personally as a young person, even with the future, if I have any political ambition in future, I feel that our democracy is growing strong. Now, back to Daktari. I will say that I think you are not correct when you say that the Maina Kiai petition saying that the election has to be done at the constituents. Actually, it says it as the polling station. Like for me, I voted at Washington, DC polling station. And at that stage, me being one of the agents of Kenya Kwanza, the step was after the count, the information entered in Form 31, 34A. That result is final. Once it's been entered there, me as a voter, it is the only stage, remember, where the voter sees what has been entered in the form. So the reason why the Maina Kiai's petition says it is final, actually, it's one of the stages that the voter can easily interact with the result directly. When the tally is going to Form 34B, it's just transferring multiple counts to it, then all the way to the National Tallying Center. So if you say, the way you have alluded that we have seen different tallies between the senator and the governor across, especially pinpointing the Rift Valley and the central Kenya, I can't justify that. You have to bring evidence and tell me that Danson, in this constituency, the IEBC gazetted 1,000 polling station, and we are supposed to have 1,000 from 34 as of the president. And now we realize we have more. You can't just tell me because people have options. I've seen people going to a ballot and just only vote for the president, and they don't want to, to vote for the other people. It's now the IEBC to justify that we have stray votes, that we found this vote in this, or there was, rejected votes. But we can't go with heresy, because what Azimio has been running around has been heresy. Nimesikia. So we can't run with that. We are the people who can actually weaken our democracy and also strengthen it. So at this stage, let Azimio bring the evidence they have. We know we have a lot of manipulation going on, even as we speak right now, making sure whoever is going to win. But the originals, because we have the originals actually. Personally, I have the original of Washington, DC. If they bring another original, I'll have to question that, So we are behind that, and we are hoping that this ruling will go on, and my candidate won't clean. And I can tell you, Daktari, that you have seen a lot of elections. The first one he had in 1992. This is one of the most improved elections in Kenya. We have had issues. We can't continue saying that whatever happened to you, I've been a student. Sometimes you can fail a subject. We normally have maybe engineering 1, engineering 2. You find out that I didn't pass engineering 1, but it comes to engineering 2, I've done well. So you can't come and judge me that because you failed engineering 1 class, why did you get an A in engineering 2 class? Because maybe I could have done better than, So we understand we have had issues, but this is the most transparent election that we have had. And that's why we're having peace. I can tell you, Daktari, you have been a candidate. You have seen other candidates. When you want to see rigging, when you want to see rigging that has happened in a country, based on our previous elections, you will see MCS complaining. You will see MPs complaining. You will see, like, it's across the country. So we can't isolate that everyone is so quiet, the whole nation, out of all these more than 1,600 and something position, everyone is quiet. Then we just isolate and say the presidential one was the one that was, So that's why we have the court, and we are hoping, maybe just to jump on what Professor was saying, Professor Mondo was saying, what I'm working on personally as a diaspora, we are trying to change the conversation. We can't be voting, as you said, you want to vote for your MP while you're in diaspora. For me, I have a different opinion. Why can't we have our own MP in the diaspora? Why can't we have our own constituency in the diaspora? Why can't we have our own governor in the diaspora? Why, we can have that. And all we need, we as the people in the diaspora, is to push our agenda in the national parliament. Right now, as we speak, Prof, let me tell you, I pushed for us to have a committee. Now we have a new committee in the national parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly, called Diaspora Committee. We are going to have the chair of that committee. Now we need to engage these people and tell them, let's amend the law so that we can have 291 constituency. Number 291, let it be diaspora, our own. Let us have county 48, our own. Okay. We are over 3 million people living outside Kenya. Why should we be voting for people who are not going to help us? Why can't we have our own leaders in the diaspora? So that is what I'm focusing on. And as we continue this conversation, we hope that we can change around so that the diaspora is not used as a transaction machine, but we are seen as Kenyans who can change policies and change the governance in the country.
Danson, awesome.
Give me a chance to
Dr.
Yeah.
Let me bring in the author, Washington Oziro, the man. the man who cools the temperatures when the house is on fire.
That's a very wise move, because I was going to address some of the things.
Let Oziro put out some of these fires, because he lives in California, so he's used to these fires and he knows how to put them out. Oziro, we've heard from Professor Monda, what's happening on the ground back in Kenya. We've heard from Dr. Wangusi, who is an Azimio representative in the diaspora, and also Danson Mukile, who is a representative of UDA in the diaspora. You've heard what they've said, but what's your view on all this?
Chris, this is like a reunion, so thank you very much for pulling it together. And like I always say, I'm in the presence of greatness in Dr. Monda, Dr. Wangusi, and Danson. Nice meeting you. So I think my take is this. We've gone back in history a little bit, and as the folks were talking, I was thinking of Kivuiti back in 2007, 2008, when Kenya was basically ablaze, and the guy was under a lot of pressure to just come clean. And I think I have to get the exact quote, but I think he ended up saying something like, "I'm not sure who won because there was rigging on both sides." So that is what contextualizes how I look at the history of elections in Kenya. That, both sides, especially at the presidential level, I call presidential elections in Kenya a blood sport, because the stakes are very high, and there's just a lot at stake, and people will do anything to win. So let's look at 2007/8, jump to 2013, and then 2017, and now 2022. Specifically with 2022, I contextualized the race using the handshake between Kenyatta and Raila as the ace that Raila has been looking for and angling for all this time. Essentially, he quote unquote had the system, or the deep state, as folks were saying.
Does not exist.
Well, but again, I'm using that kind of loosely, but part of it is that is the narrative that took hold, that, with the handshake, now we've got son of Jomo on our side. The Luos were saying, this thing we're going to take. And I really think that is the biggest mistake that Raila and his folks made. They took for granted the fact that with Uhuru Kenyatta on his side, they were going to basically be able to do unto Ruto what they did in 7, 13, and 17. In other words, rig, because they had the instruments of basically the state on their side. And I think what they forgot, what Raila forgot, was that Ruto was the sitting deputy president. So, and I always make this argument that in order to get to the point where you're running for the president of a country, you must have a network that gives you information that allows you to basically move forward with your political aspirations. So I really believe that yes, I'm going to let the legal process play out, because that is Raila's prerogative. But if you just look at the results of a couple of weeks ago, and if you look at the reasons why Ruto came out on top, regardless of the rabbit hole that is, we were rigged, I think Ruto did what he needed to do to win. And I won't be surprised if there was rigging on both sides, because I did an analysis myself, and there were some constituencies where there were more votes than there were not only not necessarily registered voters, but registered voters who turned out to vote. So I think Kivuti said it best. There was rigging on both sides. I think Raila just became complacent, and they assumed that with Kenyatta on his side, they were going to win, and Ruto was able to basically upend that cart, and now he's sitting in the driver's seat. I'm curious to see what the legal process plays, how the legal process plays out. But I would be very, very surprised if even if they have a re-election, let's just say they have a re-election, I would be surprised if the courts of, if Raila comes out on top. I mean, I would be very, very surprised.
Thanks, Osiro. Nathan, you wanted to answer, to respond to what Mukile said. Please go ahead.
So I want to give the following context, that we are developing this narrative that the election was transparent, which it was at the local level. I was an aspirant, so I would know at the local level if there was any sort of systemic or widespread rigging. So at the local level, especially because the results that he referred to on Form 34 used at the polling stations, those results are final, both for not just the presidential election, but the gubernatorial, senatorial, and the local seats. So at least on that we agree. So it's very difficult at the constituency or at the polling station level for an MCA or for a women's rep to corrupt that result. What we are saying is that if you systemically alter those results to the point that you have 500,000, for an election which was won by a margin of only about 200,000 votes, that 50.3% and 48.8% that was announced by Chebukati, for an election that's that close, every vote counts. So for starters, we have a discrepancy in one county. We're not even talking about widespread. We're talking just about one county. If you take all the Form 34As, all the Form 34Bs totaled, tallied at the national level to produce the 34C, 500,000 votes in Kiambu County cannot be accounted for. That's the first. The second was that Chebukati announced that 65.4% was the turnout for the entire country. When you take that number, 65.4% of the total registered vote of about 21 million people, what you get is 14.4 million people. Then when you total the two presidential candidates plus the spoiled votes, you're only at 14.2 million people. So again, you have another 200,000 votes that are missing. So we are talking about 700,000 votes just between the numbers that were announced as the turnout, and then in one county, right?
But Nathan,
in addition, you have the issue of voter suppression in Mombasa,
yeah,
of voter suppression in Kakamega.
No.
If this election was being won by a margin of 2 million votes, it would not matter, because even if you add 500,000, then what the court would obviously rule is that it is not sufficient to change the outcome of the election. If I lose an election by
Professor, go.
Right, Chris. I think Nathan raises some good points. Danson raises some good points, and I know they're both arguing from their political platforms. But I have a couple of questions for Danson.
Platform. Look at the numbers. Just look at the numbers.
Let me finish.
Because the election.
Let me finish.
The democracy.
Nathan, let me finish.
At the numbers.
Nathan, can I finish?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead, Prof.
So we have a couple of questions here. When Nathan tells me that turnout was 65% down.
IEBC.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish my point. Nathan, let me finish. Don't interrupt. Let me finish. Just because the presidential tallies don't tally up with all the other votes from senator, governor, MCA, MP, but women's rep, doesn't mean the election is fraudulent. Why do I say this? Nathan and Danson, I hope you hear me very carefully. If I'm a voter, I voted in Kenya. I came from New York to vote in Kenya. I voted 6 ballots. Nobody can force me to vote for my senator, or vote for my MP, or vote for my governor. I can decide to vote for one president and walk away. I can decide to vote for my senator and walk away. It's my constitutional right. So this narrative that as the meal is dropping, that somehow because presidential tallies don't match with senator tallies, don't match with MP tallies, don't match with women's rep tallies, I think is a little bit redundant. Let me finish. This is important. We need to be a little more sophisticated than that, because even in diaspora, you in Florida could only vote for president. So what happened to the other 5 ballots? You can't say because
we have
numbers
to be very specific.
That doesn't make sense. Okay. Let me finish. Let me finish my point.
Yeah.
Let me finish my point. I'm almost done. And then the other question you have to raise is this: with Danson's people, and Wangusi, I know you like this. With Danson's people, can UDA and William Ruto prove that there was no hacking or interference with the server? Can we do a forensic audit of the server? Because there seems to be some serious questions about hacking of the system. We really need to interrogate. Let me finish. Let me finish, gentlemen, please. I'm almost done. If UDA is going to say William Ruto won this election, what about the concerns from Azimio part that there was a superficially high level of voter turnout in Kenya Kwanza stronghold, mainly in Rift Valley and in Central Kenya?
In Central
That's
Kenya.
number one.
I wanted to address.
And then number 2, one goes to your point, a challenge to Azimio people.
Mm-hmm.
Where is your evidence that there was this hacking of the system?
So nobody has specifically raised the issue of hacking as a central issue in this petition. Elections, as I said, are about a simple count on the majority. When you come to the US, it's different because you have the electoral college. However, in Kenya, it's a simple majority on the presidential poll, plus 25% of the constituencies. So in an election that's as hotly contested, and we knew this coming into the election, that it would be a close election, because simply when you look at the numbers, then you look at the trends by which counties have been following, we knew it was going to be a close election. However, you get to the presidential election and 500,000 votes are missing in one county, and this is not systemic. You are right. It is your constitutional responsibility, it's your constitutional right to choose even not to go to the polls. That's a vote in itself. You can also go to that go to that ballot box and choose to only tick off 3, not the 6 seats that are being run for. However, in Kiambu alone, we're not talking about 5 counties combined or 15 counties combined. In Kiambu alone, 500,000 people chose to vote for their Senate and their governor, and then did not vote for 500,000 people did not vote for their governor and senator, but they voted for the presidency. Let me finish.
Where's your evidence?
That's
Where's your evidence? Where's your evidence?
You just look at the tallies, right? It's the total of that.
No. You can't look for the tallies. You go to form 34A. That is where the evidence is.
Yeah. You take the total of all the 34 A's, all the 34 B's. By that time, you know what the totals of the constituency of the county are. If you look at those totals, which is this case, 500,000 in central, not just in central Kenya, in Kiambu, voted for the president, did not vote for their governor.
I think I will not allow Daktari to come and
more. That's very
something that is just based on.
It's not based on conjecture, because if we were talking about where the difference in totals was in the 3 or 4, 5 million, it would not matter. But an election which was won by only 200,000 votes, 500.
No. Hey, Daktari, let me tell you something. There's an election that has happened across. Let me give you an example. One example in the coast. We have a candidate who won by 1 vote extra.
And that is
the constitution doesn't give you a chance that when the margin is so close, it means that,
no, we're not talking about the specifics. Let's have some
let me finish my statement. If you allow me, let me finish my statement.
In Kiambu,
we need to give
500,000.
And we're waiting for the evidence in court, whatever you are saying about Kiambu. Yeah. But we already have our originals signed by which some of the Azimio agents actually were nowhere in some of the polling stations, because of you depending on the deep state and the rest of, that they will do something for you. But let me also answer Prof about the technology. I mean the technology. So Prof,
the deep state.
The IEBC system was made on blockchain system. They use what we call blockchain technology, which is so hard to penetrate. And there were attempts.
But
there were attempts, and actually over 200 attempts. Yeah, there were attempts which will be presented in court. If you want hacking logs, those ones are so easy to get. When you're into technology.
Well, the hacking logs successful.
But now the question the judges will ask. Sorry. Just a minute. When you're presenting, you have been
you gotta let people
quiet. It's good to keep quiet so that at least we present our issue, then you can rebut, So once you go to court, they will ask you, was the system penetrated? You say there was an attempt to, but it wasn't. If Azimio says, oh, we have evidence that the penetration was successful, then the court will ask you, when this person entered into the system, did he or she change any? You say, okay, from 34A of a certain polling station was changed, present it to court. Then the question will be, IEBC, where is the original of that form? The original is the final. Whatever is in the server right now, whoever can penetrate and do whatever, we have our own that we took with our phones, because when the deputy president, before now the president-elect, when he's saying nobody can steal my vote, Azimio thought it was just, but we are creating our own system. We had over almost 60,000 agents, both, and I can tell you, I'm in Diaspora, and out of 27 polling stations, the Diaspora did not have, Azimio did not have an agent in every polling station. But for us, we had a polling station because it was an instruction that is how we protect the vote.
Okay, Danson, let me bring in Washington. Okay, let me bring in Washington. Washington, like I said, when the kitchen is too hot, I bring in Washington. Washington.
What I'm going to address.
Washington. Okay.
So the question that we're trying to address is what is in the content of the case against the IEBC and against our competitors on how this election was
one.
We need to answer. And then secondly, the second question, which was what evidence is there? Danson, you are absolutely right. Form 34A is set in stone. Whatever comes out of that goes into as a tally into 34B and then comes out in, as a presidential tally in 34C. We all agree on that. Now, when you look at those totals, let's look at the numbers. Let's not talk about what systems were put in place, this myth of a deep state, the nation of Kenya Kwanza. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about where did 1/5 of the vote in Kiambu County go to? That's a really important question to ask.
Okay. So, Dr.
Yeah.
Let me bring in the the reasonable man, Washington. The popular belief is that Azimio is going on a song and a prayer. That when in presenting the petition, they're hoping that when the court audits the elections, they'll find some flaws in what happened, especially in the transmission of the elections. What's
a fishing expedition?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Washington.
You don't go to the Supreme Court with a fishing expedition.
You do. Okay, Washington. Can you respond to that popular assumption, please?
I go back to what happened in 2008 when the ECK chairperson said, you know what, I really don't know who won. There was rigging on both sides. And then am I misquoting Kivuti or am I stating a fact?
I don't know.
He actually said there was, yeah. So
you're right. You're exactly right. He said he didn't know who won the election.
So given that reality, and then I add on to that really just the campaign season and the campaign dynamics and really the efforts by the Kenya Kwanza group to get out the vote. I mean, combine those two factors, the fact that there's going to be some petitioning of the results, but Ruto was fighting for literally fighting for his survival. Raila's group took for granted that with Uhuru on our side, Mbele Ikosawa. I just look at those combination of factors and conclude that this is Raila, basically being Raila and complaining that he lost an election that he did not put in the effort that he took for granted just because of the handshake. And I think
that is also I think there's a lot of false narratives around, for instance, the campaign seasons. When you talk about the handshake was a result of our party leader realizing that the country was divided, right? And
the country is still divided, though.
It needed a truce. Then you had this individual who was supposed to be deputizing our president, our current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and he had gone off on a rail. So now
we're going down a rabbit hole that that is a rabbit hole. That is a rabbit hole.
Raila had to join forces with Uhuru to win the election, or use the BBI process to win the election. That is exactly what that is the perception was created.
I wish I had acres of time, but as we summarize, because really I've run out of time. As we summarize this, I want to come to each one of you to just know, give you guys are intellectuals. You've been here, you've done this. I would like to, each one of you just give me a sense of what is going to happen at the Supreme Court based on your own analysis. And I'll start with the good professor that we've kept awake in Nairobi at 3 a.m. in the morning, Professor David Monda.
So Chris Mamala, as usual, I'm so honored to be on the Diaspora live show. I stay up till 3 in the morning in Kenya just for your show. I'm honored.
Thank you, Professor.
But what I would say is this, Kiongozi Chris, and to Danson and to Ciro and to my dear brother Wangusi. I'm a little baffled at 2 different levels. I'm going to go very briefly here. Number one, I think we really need to fix the problem of our commissioners. I really feel our electoral IEBC commissioners are a complete joke. They're a travesty and a humiliation to the Kenyan nation. We need to figure out a way to nominate honest, fair commissioners that do their job, not fight for their political godfathers. That's number one. Number two, I would really like us to embrace a spirit of issue-based political campaigning, which is what I really like in this campaign. Whether you are not a hustler or not a hustler, Wangusi, you may hate this, but I'll tell you the truth. When Ruto talked about hustler, he raised fundamental economic issues. People had to start dealing with some fundamental issues about cost of living, cost of unga. I'm a diasporan. I'm in Malindi right now, Chris. Every time I spend $1, I have to go to the bank after 3 days. My money is gone. And I'm from America. How are Kenyans surviving? I have dollars. What about Kenyans who don't have dollars? They're suffering. We really need to reimagine the macroeconomic framework, which I think is something, Wangusi, you may hate. I'm not backing Danson's view. I think this is something very fundamental William Ruto raised, the economic narrative of our political economy. How are we going to deal with the economy? How are we going to make loans cheaper for Mama Mboga? How are we going to make loans cheaper for people that are dealing with 1,000 shillings a day, not 100,000 or 1 million? How do we get those people with jobs? We have a lot of university graduates. In conclusion, all these young kids, 20, 21, 22-year-old kids, very sharp, who have no future in Kenya because they can't get ahead because of their tribe or because of bribes. How do we get them to the next level? I really hope we can reimagine the narrative of the state to help these people. So Chris, in conclusion to your question, number one, I want electoral reform. I want us to reimagine how we engage with our commissioners, how we nominate them, that we can get people of ethics and values, so we don't have this nonsense that keeps happening every 5 years, where people are divided between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, between Jubilee and ODM. We need to get people that really want to serve the country. Number two, how do we develop an agenda that speaks to the issues that Kenyans want? Our economic struggles. And I said it again. I'm here in Kenya. I've been here for 3 months. Every day I spend $1. I have to go to the ATM after 2 days. My money is finished. What about a Kenyan who doesn't have anything? Number three, how do we reimagine the role of the state so that the government is working for all 47 Kenyan tribes and not just for a few elite families?
Osiro,
Yes.
bring us home, brother.
Yeah, again, Chris, thank you so much for pulling us together. This was timely, and I think moving forward, it's going to be a forum that we can use to really drill down on some of the issues the good professor in Malindi has raised. And really, at the end of the day, we are all Kenyans. We might have different political persuasions, but we are all Kenyans. The way I see it is let the political process, let the legal process play out. I will be very surprised if the final outcome is changed after the legal process plays out over the next week, 2 weeks. And the reality is that Ruto dealt with the political landscape in the country as it was, not as he thought it was going to be, not as he wanted it to be. He dealt with it the way it was and put in the work to basically come out on top. If he can live up to the promises that he made during the campaign, given what he has done, especially in Central and Mount Kenya, he is going to be a transformational figure. I'm setting aside his negatives, which are plenty. But if he can live up to the ideals that he talked about during his campaign, specifically address socioeconomic issues, that bread and butter issues that basically changed the body politics of this last campaign, he's going to be a transformational figure because he has bested the three giants of Kenya's political landscape in this campaign. He went up against the Kenyattas, he went up against the Mois, and he went up against the Odingas and bested them all. If he can now deliver, he's going to be transformational. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Thanks, Osiro. Danson, as it is, you guys are elect, so you're in leadership. Bring us home again also.
Yeah, I hope I'm praying that the petition that's going to be submitted today, actually, we are hoping that it's going to be dismissed in totality. But we are also anticipating that the Supreme Court will also have a chance also to give some pronunciation, especially when it comes to the commission, because personally, that was the moment when the commissioners, and it was so staged in a way that all the TV screens are split, so you can tell there was some scheme. And when you look at the speech, even they read the next day, word by word, you'll find out that Azimio candidate also read the same. So you can easily, Kenyans are very smart people. They can easily join the dots and say, someone wrote this thing, for both of them. So, but I want to just appreciate Kenyans, for being peaceful despite all this politics playing out. I think we should keep this. And I'm so happy for the first time. I'll always repeat what the president-elect said. We have voted not based on ethnicity. I know it is not out totality, but this is a great step that we have made. That you can choose Danson, you can choose Daktari Wangus, you can choose Chris, you can choose anyone, not based on where they were born, not based on which dialect they speak, but the agenda they have for that constituency, agenda they have for that ward, and what they have for the country. So that is really kudos for us. And you'll be surprised as we go on, you'll find that some MCAs were elected in an area, even they don't speak the local language. You'll be surprised. So we are hoping you can do the same, and we are praying that we are going to bring facts and dismiss the Azimio petition. But all in all, we are hoping the conversation will change. I know when you started, Professor said about the country being divided, 50% voting for us, 50.5, then the other is 48, so it is too close. But you need to realize that the people who vote is just a fraction of Kenyan population. It's just a fraction. We are over 50-something million. So I won't say, as they say, the country is divided a half. I will not use that.
is only maybe divided for those who participate in the election, but the majority of Kenyans, they are back to work. They are, they are focused on meeting their daily activities. So we're hoping the few who participated, the fraction, the percentage, 63 who are registered, and those who are registered who are not registered, the majority. I hope they cannot put the country at ransom, but rather to leave the court, finish what they have. And we are expecting, I'm not a lawyer, I'm into technology, but from what I'll read that petition when it is submitted, of course, a public document. And I don't think we have, Azimio has a strong case, but Dr. Wangusa, I know he'll be like, we have a strong case.
Yes, I've completely run out of time, but I assure you, this conversation continues next week. At least next week, we'll have known the kind of issues that are at play. Next week, I'll be hosting this show from Seattle, Washington. I'm traveling there. I'll be spending my weekend there. And I also want to speak to Kenyans in Seattle to just get a sense of what they think about all this. Because at times, we always assume that everything happens in Nairobi, in the East Coast. In America, we assume that everything happens on the East Coast, Washington, DC, New York.
No, in California.
And in California. So, guys, honestly, I'm very grateful to you, and I really, I'm happy that we are back. Danson, I really appreciate you. Appreciate your presence today. This is just the beginning of so many things, because like you said, beyond just being cheerleaders for these leaders back in Kenya, we also have a diaspora agenda, and that is what we're going to champion from now onwards. It doesn't really matter who wins the elections after the right now. Of course, I don't want to minimize the fact that UDA is in leadership now, elect.
He is the president-elect. So.
Yeah, I hope we have a conversation, and I have very nice proposal. Professor and Dr. can, they can help us even to sharpen it much, into detail, so that when you engage these politicians, so we're able, because that is how we are going to change the conversation in the diaspora. Ours will just be talking, but unless the law is changed, there's nothing we can do.